Okay, we'll look at the third paragraph of Federalist number 1. Among the most formidable of the obstacles which the new Constitution will have to encounter may readily be distinguished the obvious interest of a certain class of men in every state to resist all changes which may hazard a diminution of power, emolument, and consequence of the office they hold under the state establishment, and the perverted ambition of another class of men who will either hope to aggrandize themselves by the confusion of their country, or will flatter themselves with fairer prospects of elevation from the subdivision of empire into several partial confederacies than from its union under one government. So he's saying we are aware, we are smart enough to realize that the minute you talk about uniting these 13 new states, there's going to be a group of men, a group of people that are in power, that are going to worry that what's going to happen? Hazard a diminution of power. Diminution means their power is going to be reduced. They will lose the position they have, and their power will be lost to them. Or emolument. In other words, the money they're making right now, because of the power they have in that state, they might just lose part of that money or think that they're going to lose that money, so they're going to be against this Constitution. The word emolument is used 15 times in the Federalist Papers in 12 different papers, I believe. And the reason it is referred to over and over, because he knows that there are people who are going to, any way they can, fill their pockets with money by the power that's given to them when they're in office. In other words, human nature, he says, because of corruption, you have to always watch out for that. And at the same time, when we want to unite these colonies, if somebody in North Carolina is making money because he is in charge of the ports, let's say, and he's getting a percentage of the tariff, the tax that's levied on things that come in the state, he's going to be afraid that he's going to lose that money. So he might just go against this Constitution. So he says, be aware of that. Or be aware that there will be some people that as a consequence of this new Constitution going into effect, it will damage their standing financially anyways. So they are going to be against this Constitution. And the perverted ambition of another class of men who will either hope to aggrandize themselves by the confusion of their country and flatter themselves with fairer prospects of elevation from the subdivision of empire into several partial confederacies. See, he's already saying that there are people who know they're only powerful enough to gain favor, let's say, within 3 states. They know they're not going to be liked in the northern states or middle states, but they might be liked in the southern states. So it is to their advantage to say, no, we'd rather have 3 or 4 confederacies. In other words, unite 3 of these states into a confederacy, a weak union, because they know that maybe in the 13 states they are not going to get a good position to be assigned to a good post. So they naturally will say, no, we really don't need this union. We really don't need this constitution. I think it's best if we just make 3 or 4 confederacies out of these 13 states. Because they know, let's say if you're from Georgia or South Carolina and you have lots of slaves, and you know in the northern states, they are not going to give you, slaveholder, a lot of power. You say, okay, I'm just gonna be a president of a confederacy that's made up of 3 states, because that can be done. I'd rather have that than be a nobody in 13 states. So he says, be careful. There are some people who flatter themselves, who put this in their mind, and they say, maybe I should choose to do this, and the hell with the union. Who cares for that? I'd much rather be the president of 3 states than the whole union. I don't care what happens to anybody else. So he says, this is part of your job, American people. Be on the alert that there are some ambitious men that want power, and they do not care whether they damage society or not, whether it's good for the community or not. They're just ambitious to gain power, and with that power to rule others, to put money in their pockets, and don't care about others. So that is one of the things that you have to be very, very careful about, American people, when you're hearing people say bad things about this Constitution. It might be their perverted ambition that is making them do that. Okay, let me tell you something about this map. You see this line here, it says Proclamation Line of 1763. There was a war between France and Britain. It was called the 7-Year War, and it ended in 1763. When they ended the war and they wrote the peace treaty, one of the things that they agreed upon was that there will be a line over here, a border here, Proclamation Line of 1763, where Britain will not allow the colonists here to go west of that line. This way, the Native Americans here that were helpful to Britain and also some who were helpful to France, because the 7-Year War was between France and Britain, right? So they wanted to make sure that the colonists don't advance into frontier and take over the land that the native people had here. And that's why you see this line, and this line becomes important later on after the revolution ends and United States, after the Paris Peace Treaty in 1783, United States takes control of this area right here, and I'll show it to you on a different map. And that creates its own problems. So it's important to just keep this in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that this area, see, they had 2 areas they called Florida, East Florida and West Florida. This was under the Spanish control. So was the Mississippi River. See this big river here? There are 2 rivers. There's a Missouri River that comes here and joins Mississippi, and then it becomes mighty Mississippi. And this river is extremely important in decision making of the founders of this country, and actually in the formation of the settlements west of here. So we'll talk about that more, but I want you to pay attention to the rivers that are here in the United States. These are all rivers. These are all major rivers. This is the Ohio River right here, okay? And I already showed the Missouri River comes and joins Mississippi and becomes the big Mississippi River that flows here to what is today Louisiana. So keep all of these in mind, because these rivers are extremely important in the making the history of the United States. Because remember, back in that time, at least till we had trains, the only way you could move cargo was either on a cart, which was horrible, getting them over mountains and over valleys, or much easier, put them on a river, on a ship, and send them wherever you want to. So control of these rivers, very important. That's why I put this map here like this, because I wanted you to see kind of the main rivers, the big rivers in the United States. So we'll come back and continue with the rest of Federalist number 1. See you soon.